Hello, Turtles! The 46th Ludum Dare event is approaching very soon, starting Friday. Over the past several years, I have participated in every event and submitted something for an entry. Some of these were with teams, and others were completely solo. I'm going to answer many questions that will help whether this is your first jam or you have experienced several before. First, let's introduce Dizzy, my wonderful girlfriend, who will be asking all the questions you may have about game jams.
Hello, I'm Dizzy, and Tim has dragged me through 3 Ludum Dare events where I help create the art on the games. I have several questions from the community about participating in game jams. They're listed in the description below with timestamps should you want to jump around. Alright, first question. I'm totally new to game dev. My game will not be any good. Should I still be joining a game jam?
That is a good question. As long as you go into the jam with a mindset of learning and creating anything, then absolutely jump right in. There should be some caution taken if it is likely to cause frustrations. There are a lot of developers who made their first ever game during a game jam, and most jamming communities are welcoming to new developers. It is advantageous to know the tools, but it is also possible to learn on the fly as well.
Okay, good answer, Tim. So second question we have. What if I cannot come up with a unique or original idea for my game?
While there are points for originality, I personally believe it's sometimes overrated and should not be a reason to worry. If coming up with a unique idea is burning you out, just use one that excites you, whether it is truly unique or not. Many people will use platformer mechanics, but each game is subtly different, and yours will be too. Last week, I made my first game in Unity and used an infinite runner-like mechanic to explore the engine. A viewer of my streams made a game using the same infinite runner mechanic, but their game played very differently from mine. It is important that an original idea does not become an excuse to stop you from having a good time.
Next question. With so few hours in a game jam, how do you plan your time to avoid waste?
First, I don't really plan anything during a game jam and let things happen. That said, I use chunks of time to keep things on track during the weekend. The first chunk actually starts before the jam, ensuring groceries and other life chores won't need attention or cause distractions. In a team event, I also ensure the entire team knows the schedule. Once the jam starts, a chunk of time lasting an hour or two allows for designing an idea and planning how to tackle it. Keep the plan minimal. Just answer the question, can I make this before the deadline? The next chunk of time is about 4 hours, and it's to get the game working. Gameplay, win condition, lose condition, just use blocks, shapes, and colors and rough out the idea. I find even while aiming for 4, this often stretches to 6 or 8 hours. Try keeping it short, it does help. After this chunk, the rest of the time is spent making it better. This final chunk doesn't really have a plan, I just constantly ask myself, what does the game need to become better? Avoid adding new features to make it better, just polish and tune the ones you already have. Perhaps your camera is working, but seems a little rigid. Attaching the target with a spring and damper could make the game easier to view. Always look for the lowest effort and biggest value, then repeat. In a team event, a final block of time should be set aside before creating final builds to ensure everything gets into the game. During this block, new things shouldn't be created, and other team members could start using this time to test and look for any game-breaking bugs or writing up the material for release.
Next question. Does it make sense to have a reflection after the jam?
Absolutely. Highly recommended for both solo and teams to reflect on what happened. Investigate both the game itself and the development process. How could the team work together better? What processes and tools worked well? Find a few good things that you would like to repeat next time and a few things that could be improved upon. What things slowed down development? Write this information down. Reflecting like this allows learning from the experience. I do it monthly for my adventure.
Next question. How can game jams benefit your larger projects?
While many jams wind up as small throwaway projects, some communities like Alaka Jam have an unranked category that allows you to continue working on a larger project. By focusing on a subset of large project, you can still jam with the community and give feedback. In multiple Ludum Dare events, I've been able to make tools for my game development framework or even levels for ongoing projects. Sometimes this takes a little bit of effort and creativity to fit into the jam environment, but it can work, even if a little logic needs to be recreated.
Okay, next question. Where should someone who wants to participate in a game jam start?
There are lots of jams available to you, as you can see on indiegamejams.com or itch.io/jams, and almost all communities are very welcoming to new participants. Some jams last 7 days or longer, and others are as short as an hour. As a new developer, sometimes a jam provides a good motivation for learning, and other times it can be overwhelming. Depending on your personality, you might want to practice before jumping to a jam, or maybe just dive right in. The longer jams have a few benefits of allowing more time for learning and to create a more polished game. This tends to be a more relaxed experience, though can quickly fall into a procrastination trap for many. I have 5 days left. I'll do that tomorrow. The 48-hour or weekend jam is a pretty good sweet spot for avoiding that trap while still having enough time to get something done. As a new developer, just know your skills will grow and submit whatever you create, even when you wish it were better. Trust me, it is nice to look back on the progress later.
Next question. Can an incomplete game also be considered a game jam success?
There is also value in having created something. While games have become much more approachable for people to create, it still takes a lot of effort. You should congratulate yourself no matter how far you got. Trust me, my first attempts at an official game jam were really bad, and I had already got a bachelor degree in game design and development and then worked in the game industry for over a year and a half. It was rough. My first attempt at a game jam had me trying to use procedural levels that took way too much time, and my engine was filled with bugs. The second attempt, I simply went too big with scope, and nobody understood how to play the game. These are things I would barely call a game these days, but it was successful for learning and creating something.
Okay, here's a very hard question. How do you not become discouraged by not producing the results you want?
That is a difficult question. Sometimes, in the middle of the jam, after the honeymoon phase, about where the real work kicks in, an overwhelming sense of doom begins. This game is not good enough. Takes over and challenges you and the team. This feeling has been in every single jam I have participated in, and while it is difficult to shake off, it gets easier with time. It helps a great deal to understand you are making an entire game in a single weekend. Not an easy task. After committing to your idea and starting the project, you often build up internal hype for the game. Feelings are boosted by envisioning magic visuals and super fun gameplay. This is difficult to find in months of development, so when your idea runs a little short, it becomes easy to think about the ideas you didn't choose. This tempts you into changing course, or worse, quitting the jam. One way I power through this is by doing my best to keep expectations low. That way, when I create a game in a single weekend, I understand that the game will not match the vision, and power on without swapping to an earlier or different idea. Even Turbo Boom, which has been in development for 6 months, when I planned for 4, is not matching my vision quite as I desired. This is just how creativity works sometimes.
Next question. Can you specialize in a role while participating alone in a game jam?
It is certainly easier to specialize while doing a team event, as you can be the dedicated artist, musician, or programmer. In a solo jam, you need to do everything yourself, or you will just have pretty art, good music, or code. That said, it is still possible to specialize while doing the general tasks. I have a background in programming and naturally feel most comfortable writing code. To practice the artist role, I can give myself a challenge of 4 hours of programming and focus on art much more. This allows me to spend the majority of my time practicing new skills and specializing in the role of being an artist.
Next question. Can a game jam affect me during my day job aside from just plotting the next steps?
Aside from the mindset of plotting, it is possible you wreck sleep schedules during a jam. For this reason, and more, I highly recommend you keep your normal eating and sleeping habits. Do not try to stay up really late or eat food that you otherwise normally wouldn't eat. Lack of sleep will affect your concentration and lead to very simple bugs being hard to track down. This can also plow into your day job, though you know your body best. Some people recover faster and others slower. If you are unsure, it can be wise to plan and request a personal day following the jam just to have some time to recover.
Next question. After doing a lot of game jams, how do you keep the motivation to continue?
This can actually get harder as you do a lot of jams and wish to focus on long-term or larger projects. One trick is to mix things up. If you usually work alone, try jumping into a team to learn more about that process. Try specializing in a role you are not great at to build new skills. Use your strongest skills to challenge yourself with other limitations. Can you make the game look good with only 4 random colors? Focus on programming a game using different programming language and framework than you normally use. For anyone creating their own engine or tools, a game jam provides an amazing opportunity to test them under time pressure and slight stress, which will show the weak points in the design.
Okay, next set of questions are more team related. When do you start to organize a team?
The latest I start organizing a team is the final week before the jam, as in the next couple days. I like knowing who is on the team, what their roles will be, and have plans of open communication no later than Wednesday before a weekend jam. I've started organizing teams as early as a few weeks before an event, but waiting until the day of or during the jam is very difficult to find participants for your team. Not impossible, but very difficult.
Alright, next question. How do you come up with an idea as a team?
Together. Seriously, in all team collaboration projects, for a jam or just for fun, I will always get as many team members as possible to join the first session where the ideas are formed. This is crucial for giving ownership to everybody. Sure, team members will come in with ideas of their own, but as the group discusses these and other ideas in the brainstorming session, they will spark more ideas and the group together will start working on one idea more than the others. This is usually when I start suggesting that we focus on that idea for the weekend.
Alright, what happens if the team cannot agree on any idea?
I have only had one stalemate with a team in finding an idea to work on. No ideas getting discussed was really jumping very high on the interest charts, and conversations bounced around for nearly 90 minutes. To keep things moving in this very rare situation, I grabbed one of the most simple mechanics that had been mentioned during the planning session and focused the group on that. It actually wound up being a very great game.
Next question. Can you take input from other team members regarding your idea, even if it changes the idea entirely?
This is definitely a personality thing, and you need to be able to remain open-minded and discard preconceived ideas you might have going into a team event. As mentioned earlier, it is best to come up with the idea together as a team. This requires some give and take, and that may require practice. When I first started collaborating for fun in non-jam situations, I would allow others to take the driver's seat and lead the project, even if I had more experience. Even if I thought they were doing things wrong or the hard way. I would remain open to that path. Doing this allowed me to practice opening my mind, and sometimes the wrong or hard way may not be as bad as you think initially. Often, it's just different.
Next question. How do you handle a person in the team who delays the team effort?
First, and most importantly, is to understand a game jam is not a job and it is done for fun. So when somebody doesn't show up, or they don't deliver, or whatever the issue might be, address it with the understanding that this is all for fun. It certainly can put a damper on the team when a member doesn't pull their weight, and yes, it has happened to one degree or another in a few projects. This is bound to happen on group projects from time to time, unless you know and trust each member very well, and even then, it can still occur. Things happen. Generally, in jam situations, I tend to ignore problems unless it is upsetting the team dynamic. Usually, these occur from lack of communication or improper scheduling and tasking, and often dealing with it after the event is better than during. Just try communicating with the person to find if there's any cause and notifying the team if anything changes.
Next question. How can one avoid being the team nanny?
This might vary from person to person, so do your best to be a team leader you would like to have leading you. In a jam, there isn't much time to babysit the other team members. Go in blindly trusting that people will do what they say, but also monitor if somebody might be over-promising. I think the key part here is remembering that this is all for fun. If the project doesn't come together as expected, it can still be a fun experience for everyone, so try not to ruin it by pointing fingers and blaming others.
Would you deliberately take a team role you're not good at to build skills?
Absolutely. Although it is a bit intimidating to go into a weaker role, I have done it a few times, and seen others do it as well. There is a lot to learn by doing so. However, when using a team event to build skills, you should be very clear with the team. it is important they have the correct expectations going in. Share a taste of your current art, music, or other skills, and then do your best. I have found skill building in a team event has added more pressure, and this can result in frustration when skills can't match a vision. As long as expectations are set, this shouldn't be an issue for anyone.
Next question. How do you handle errors or mistakes from other team members?
This depends a bit on the situation and how big the mistake might be. If you have a lot more experience than the other team member, it might make sense to mention the mistake and offer better methods. In general, it is best to let others have their own freedom to do their own thing, which includes making minor mistakes. Of course, if they are asking for it, then give them the help. After an event, you could reflect with a team or a specific developer to offer that advice that might help in future projects. Just don't be pushy, as there are many ways to achieve the same things.
Next question. Is the communication overhead to coordinate with multiple people worth it for a game jam?
This depends greatly on you, your wants, and the team in question. In all of my experiences with team events, most communications occurred before the game jam. Everyone knew what their roles were and the general structure of the weekend, including methods of communication. The start of the event, when the theme is announced, has the highest level of communication load as the team collaborates to find an idea. After the idea is found, typically communication overhead is I finished whatever and I got whatever in the game. I have always used source control for code and assets during a jam, which makes grabbing and sharing this very easy. I also deployed team builds for testing this way. In rare cases, I have accepted things through email or other means to manually integrate in the game. Whatever works for the entire team.
When are you going to just stop playing around with these games of yours and release Turbo Boom? Well, you know the drill. Share the video with others participating in Ludum Dare and subscribe to see more game development tricks and techniques. Give the video a thumbs up if it was helpful and leave a comment if you have any thoughts or questions. Until later, turtles, have a good one.